quite well.
AC SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated is coming soon on the PS4! But it's on a console that you don't have. Aww. But you can't play the original version that was released on the PlayStation 2. Too bad you don't have that console either. Aww. But you can't play the Game Boy Advance version. Aww. But it's a console that you definitely do have. Too bad that version sucks.
Now, unless you've been living under a rock like this fella over here, you would know that SpongeBob SquarePants is one of the most popular characters of all time. Seriously, he's appeared everywhere, from merchandise to movies. He's even had his own popsicle stick. That's pretty cool. But obviously, his most popular outing in media besides the TV series is of course video games. And he's been in plenty of good video games, such as Creature from the Krusty Krab, the movie game, even Truth or Square. But of course, his most popular outing was Battle for Bikini Bottom. Now at heart, Battle for Bikini Bottom is just a regular 3D collectathon, but there's so much stuff to it. It's so charming, there's so many playable characters, and of course tons of SpongeBob references, specifically from the first 2 seasons. It's just such a great game. I mean, it's even having a remake coming out soon, so that's how you know how good this game is. But there are versions of the game that people don't really talk about, such as the PC port and the one I'm talking about today, the GBA version. Now, not a lot of people talk about this GBA version, and rightfully so. How do I say it? It's not that good, but it's not that bad. How about I just explain what I think of this game? Now, the plot of this game revolves around Plankton as he wants to take over the world with the help of his newly created robot army. Now it's up to SpongeBob and SpongeBob alone to take care of the situation. Now already we have our first problem. You see, in the original Battle for Bikini Bottom, SpongeBob wasn't the only protagonist. There was Sandy and Patrick, but for whatever reason they didn't make them playable characters in the GBA version. However, they are in the game, but they're just NPCs who have nothing interesting to say. Now this is not a real problem for me, considering this game is called SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom and SpongeBob is the main character, but I'm sure for a lot of people that might be a bit of a concern. But let's talk about the real problem of this game, and that's the controls. Now, the original game, from what I've heard, controls pretty well. It controls like any other standard 3D platformer. This game, on the other hand, does not control like a standard 2D platformer. The controls are just all over the place. The gravity is off, SpongeBob just drops like, look at that! And of course, the momentum of this game is just non-existent. SpongeBob just jumps whenever he wants to, and there's no like flow to it at all. Just look at this. There's nothing about this that screams fun. And that's pretty much the main important part of the game. Fun, but this game does not seem to have it. Okay, I might be exaggerating there, but SpongeBob's controls aren't that bad. They're just not as good as I would want them to be. But at least the level design takes this control scheme in mind, and at least after an hour or so of playtime, you'll get pretty used to SpongeBob. Speaking of the levels, all the levels you explore in this game are similar to the ones in the original Battle for Bikini Bottom. You start out in Jellyfish Fields, then go to downtown Bikini Bottom, and eventually Goo Lagoon, etc. It's really nice stuff, and the whole design of this game really reminds me of the original show, specifically the first 3 seasons, and SpongeBob's design really looks similar to his show counterpart, except it's all 32-bit style. The music, on the other hand, is pretty hit or miss. Some of the songs definitely do land, but a lot of them are pretty repetitive and annoying. The game uses a lot of leitmotif and remixes, and it doesn't really use it quite well. Like the first level song is pretty nice and catchy, and they remixed it again later on, but it's kind of annoying and repetitive. And the game soundtrack isn't as good as the original Battle for Bikini Bottom soundtrack. That game had a lot of variety in terms of its instruments they used. This game, on the other hand, pretty much uses the same sound font throughout the entire game with the same basic instruments, and it gets annoying after a while. I wish they just ported the original soundtrack from Battle for Bikini Bottom and just compressed it for this GBA version. I think that would have been a lot better and would have made this game's soundtrack overall a lot more appealing, especially to fans of the console game. But the soundtrack, for what it is, it's alright. For this game, it's pretty alright. But as a soundtrack overall compared to its console counterpart, it's definitely not that good. Now, one thing I've neglected to talk about in this game is the level design. And to simply put it, the level design in this game is just bad. You see, this game is made on the GBA, and because of that, there's gonna be a lot of screen crunch. But the camera is way too zoomed in into Spongebob, meaning you can't see what's in front of you, and often you're gonna get hit by enemies that you couldn't see, making the game harder than it has any right to be. And this game is made for kids. And if I find the game hard, it's gonna be 2 times worse for little kids who have just experienced this game for the first time. And this game isn't like a normal 2D game. Normally in a 2D game, you have to go left to right. Simple. That's how you beat the level, and that's how you can progress to the next level. This game tries to be like Battle for Bikini Bottom on the console, where you get a certain amount of golden spatulas to progress to the next level. But it makes more sense in Battle for Bikini Bottom since the levels are open, it's 3D, and it's a collectathon. The whole purpose of the game is to collect stuff. This is a 2D game on the Game Boy, but you're gonna spend most of your time exploring the levels just to find these golden spatulas, meaning the game's gonna be longer than it has any right to be. And this is on the go, meaning levels should be more shorter, so it makes a level that could take about 2 minutes to complete take over 10, even 15 minutes, and that just comes very annoying. But the one thing I hate most about the game, the one aspect that makes this game so frustrating, are the boss fights. You see, after going across these intense levels, you face the boss, and they're just a joke. The bosses are some of the most easy bosses I've ever faced in gaming history. I'm not even joking, the attack patterns are easy to predict, but even then, you can just cheese the game, beating the boss earlier than intended. And I can't even say anything anymore. I mean, the boss, this game is just so frustrating.
So Battle for Bikini Bottom on Game Boy Advance is a pretty mixed bag for me. It's definitely not as good as its console version, but it's not too bad, even though I've been making a lot of criticism to the game. So I think to end things off, I should say some good things about the game.
For one thing, I really like the enemy variations in this game. Battle for Bikini Bottom on console is criticized for not having too many enemies, or at least enemy variations, but this game there's plenty of them and they all do pretty cool stuff, from blowing you up, shooting you with bullets, or simply helping you get up into the air, which is a really nice touch. And of course the Sandy's tree dome level is really cool because you get to explore the place and you need to find water because otherwise you dry up. Really nice touch. And of course the boss fights, while I criticized them to death earlier, it's still cool to see how they replicate the boss fights on the console version onto this portable console. I mean, even though it's pretty easy, they at least gave it a try, and they at least look pretty cool even on the GBA. So yeah, Battle for Bikini Bottom on Game Boy is a mixed bag for me. It's not that bad, but like, you know, it's not really as good, but there's still a lot of good stuff in the game, so if you really want to give it a try, go for it. But ultimately, the console version will always be the best version of Battle for Bikini Bottom. I mean, maybe the PC one is also good, but I haven't played that, so
Wow, I can't believe you like Battle for Bikini Bottom on Game Boy Advance. Wait till you play the SpongeBob SquarePants movie game on Game Boy Advance. Well, it can't be that bad, can it?